Greetings, brothers and sisters, and people of goodwill. Thank you for joining me. When I first had the idea of creating a Facebook page that would center on the history of African people some 11 or so years ago, I didn't do so with the notion that these 10 books that I've listed are the books that we should focus in on exclusively. But as a starting point, in order to catalog the long and storied history of African people. And of course, since then, there have been many books that have been written, some of which I've uploaded, that are in that same vein. Two of them come to mind right away. Robin Walker's When We Ruled, an epic book that I would put right at the top. If I was putting that list out today, that would be one of the 10 that I would have listed. And Manu Ampin's new book, A History of African Civilizations, would be in the mix as well. But there are others. Molefi Asante's A History of Africa. I could go on and on and on and name some of the iconic scholars and researchers that have helped to reclaim and recapture our history and snatch it out of the hands of people that have distorted and have co-opted and robbed us of our historical legacy. The truth be told, we've been blessed with many iconic scholars that have toiled behind the scenes, doing the hard work, not pontificating over a social media keyboard. Scholars like Asa Hilliard, Theophila Obenga, J.A. Rogers, Amos Wilson, Runoko Rashidi, W.E.B. Du Bois, Maulana Karenga, and many others. But I gotta confess, reading Robin Walker's When We Ruled and Manu Ampin's book kind of inspired me to go back and revisit some of the books that I've had in my possession that I read 30 or more years ago, because much of the information is rooted in those scholars that put in that hard work. And so I've decided that what I'm going to do is do some book reviews. We live in a time and an era, even though it's the information age, it's also the age of short attention spans and YouTube historians. People do not read to the extent that they used to read or that they should read. And so consequently, what I'm going to do is go back over some of these books. I've already started that, and do some book reviews and keep them in little snippets and vignettes with the hopes that I can inspire other people to visit this information. It could not be more important. There could not be a more important time than right now that we get a firm grasp on our history. Because right now, there is a concerted effort that is growing to snuff out any attempts for authentic history to be taught in school. We've had enough of the distortions and the half-truths and the omissions that were taught to us when we were in school. There's too much other information out there that is evidence-based that we need to know and that we need to teach our young people, our kids, our grandkids, our great-grandkids, so they know who they are, so we can eliminate what plagues African heritage people, a loss of historical memory. So look for that. I'm going to start out with the father of Black History Month, which was called Negro History Week initially, Carter G. Woodson. I'm going to start out with his book, The Miseducation of the Negro. As I was reading that the other day, I'm saying, man, this brother was writing this stuff in 1933. And how is it that here we are in 2025, still dealing with the same kinds of environment, the same kind of obstacles in our way of learning our true history today as what he wrote about back in 1933. Now, to those who may not be aware of what the original 10 books that I uploaded as part of 10 books every Black person should read were, they are as follows. The Autobiography of Malcolm X, by Alex Haley. I've read that multiple times. I'll go back to it again too. The African Origins of Civilization, Myth or Reality by the great multidisciplinarian scholar Cheikh Anta Diop. The Miseducation of the Negro by Carter G. Woodson. Stolen Legacy by George G.M. James. The Destruction of Black Civilization by Chancellor Williams. Black Man of the Nile and His Family by Dr. Yosef Ben Jochannan. Egypt Revisited by Ivan van Sertima. Christopher Columbus and the African Holocaust by the master teacher, Dr. John Henrik Clarke. African Civilizations by John G. Jackson. And Exploding the Myths, Nile Valley Contributions to Civilization by Anthony Browder. And I'll close with this quote from scholar Amos Wilson and the Falsification of African Consciousness, 1993. I often say in this regard that if there were not a direct relationship between history and money, a direct relationship between history and power, history and rulership, history and domination, then why is it that the European rewrote history? Why is it that the European wants to rewrite our history and distort it? Why is it he doesn't want to present it at all? Apparently, the rewriting, the distortion, and the stealing of our history must serve vital economic, political, and social functions for the European, or else he would not bother and try so hard to keep our history away from us and to distort it in our own minds.